I only have a few weeks to get this roll cage built, which is a very truncated timeline. I've got another car in the back I'm going to try to get running and going. You'll be seeing some videos on that later, so stay tuned because it's going to be a very exciting couple of weeks. In this episode, we continue to strip out the interior, making room for the roll cage, also getting rid of a lot of unnecessary weight. And then later on in the video, we're going to be planning on where to put the bars, how they're going to go in, how they're going to fit. We'll throw them in a pile right here for now. So these come out. Ah! I need a screwdriver. I got some loose screws here. Oh! Oh! How does that come out? Oh, that comes off of there. In there. Oh, feels like there's supposed to be a screw. Ooh, that's tight. So we're starting by removing the seat belts for the rear seat. Probably should put this back in. All right. I think that's tight enough to be safe. Next is the sun visors. So I'm not exactly sure. I want to pull this headliner off. I think maybe I gotta open up the sunroof to get this off. I'll find out. This is these A-pillars, I believe. These usually just... Oh, something fell. Hopefully it wasn't important. Next, I believe there's this thing here that goes around the opening. And it feels like that's holding it. Although this isn't coming off at all. How does that, is it glued in? This, man, how does that, oh, there we go. Yeah, got it. All right, everything is out. Oh, thing's hitting me on the head and gets cleaned up everything. So my plan is to get a piece of sheet metal and weld this roof up and put in probably a roof scoop on that somehow. Oh, I guess I can put the sun visors back up. Passenger side visors in. All right, driver's side visors in. So when you're planning a roll cage, the main foundation of it's really the main hoop. That's the hoop that comes up right behind the driver. It's gonna go right in here. And so the important thing is, the first thing you need to find is figure out where you want to land it. So a lot of cars you can put them right here in this corner, but because this car is so small and I'm very tall, there's actually a really good beam right here we could land the main hoop on, weld a plate on top of here. But the problem I've got is with the seat in here. The seat actually is going to be back here, so it's almost going to hang over this beam. So my plan is build a pad right in here, and we'll tie it into this beam here, and probably tie it into the wheel well. So that's a very strong part of the car. The other thing you need to be aware of when you're building a roll cage is where's the gas tank at. So on this car, it's right underneath where the back seat was. I believe it comes down and kind of comes around here. So you might need to go underneath it and look at possibly pulling the fuel tank, because if we don't want to be welding right above the fuel tank. I believe it's right in here is where it ends. So it's still pretty close, might be okay. Something to consider. We want to keep the bar in here. We want to try to keep it real tight to the side. The seat belt will have to go out once we get to that point, and have to use racing harnesses. I think it's just going to be in the way. It's not going to be able to wrap around with the bar there. So we'll start it probably around here. Try to keep it tight to the side. It's probably going to be right around in the window here. It's going to be real important we remove the sunroof, because I want to keep it as tight to the roof as I can. When I'm building roll cages, this corner is usually pretty critical to what you're doing, the top corner here. Because the further out you can move this corner, the further out the front down tube is. The further outside we can get that, the further away it is from the driver's head. And then additionally, with me being tall, I've got a lot of room under the seat, so I need to figure out how to lower the seat as much as I can. And again, the lower we can get the seat, the further the driver's head is from the roll bar. So quite a lot of work and figuring to see how everything's going to fit, how it's going to work, what can stay, what needs to go, all that. Another thing to be aware of when you're building a roll cage is we've got this, I believe this is like a side airbag. That might be the sensor for the side airbag, and the seats have airbags built into them. I know the airbag computer is actually in the center console, right behind the HVAC control there, right behind the heating and air conditioning control and ashtray. There's a little box, so we're definitely going to want to unplug that in a race car, especially with a full roll cage. And if again, to save weight, you can pull all that stuff out, but I think it's going to be a little too much work for this. But once you unplug that computer, the whole system then is disabled, so you don't have to worry about airbags going off. So we'll have the top of the main hoop, the curve. We're going to want to tie the rear down tube in somewhere in this area. It's going to come down at an angle, and it's going to land down in here somewhere. We've got a nice beam across the back, which ties the two rear struts together. There's also a subframe down here. There's some subframe mounts. I don't know exactly where they're at, but they're down here somewhere. I usually want to brace those, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to put it right here. I'll land the rear down tubes right in this area right here. That way I can still get to the strut bolts. So I just took this car on a test drive. I set the seat to about where I want it, where I'm comfortable. I just took a bunch of pictures of the distance between my head and the roof, approximately where the seat goes from the side. I try to get pictures of my arms to the steering wheel, and just kind of get an idea of this is where I want the seat. I'm definitely going to have to lower it because my head is almost right on that aluminum beam for the sunroof. Once that gets removed, I'm going to gain about an inch. But I still need, if I can drop this, I think I need to drop this seat at least 2 inches. If I can get it 3, that's even better. That may require having to cut out the floor and drop the seat mount a little bit. I'm not sure on that, but I definitely want to have the curve, so the seat's back here. I want to try to get the main hoop right in here, which means we're going to try to land the main hoop right around in this area here. I was planning on doing it back here. Still might do that, but I kind of would like it right in this area here, so it's straight up. If I can cut into this, maybe even cut this section out so the bar is real tight, even cut some of this out so the bar is real tight in here. Even have this front down tube, the bar is going to go right along here. Even inset it into there if I can, especially back up here where my head is. So the further I can get the bars away from my head, the more of a crash zone we have. The next step in the process that's important to me is tape. I can take tape, I'm going to lay it out in the car where I want to put bars so I can kind of get a visual idea of where the bars go. I can get angle finders, I can start figuring out the angles of the bends I need to make and where they need to go, and I can start making some real rough basic drafts of what I want to do for the roll cage. So here's kind of the first problem I've come across here. Here's the top of the seat, here's the aluminum piece for the sunroof. My head sticks probably right about here is where my head is. And if you look at this, I'm planning on this being the bottom of the top part of the main hoop of the roll bar. And in order to do that, I was hoping I could kind of curve it in here, cut it in a little bit, but I'm gonna have to cut that in pretty deep. So a lot of this is gonna have to get cut out. I'm already seeing a problem there, which means in order to get this front hoop or front down tube that's gonna follow along here and go down, I'm probably gonna have to cut a lot of this stuff out. The bar is gonna have to sit way out this way, and it's gonna have to kind of curve in and curve down. So there's a lot of curves in there. That's gonna be a real complicated bar to make. Probably gonna have to do it a few times to get it right. Okay, the next section is we want to put a curve. This main hoop's gonna come down and it's gonna have a curve in it. I want to have this curve right around where the harness bar is. There's a bar that's gonna come straight across. We're gonna put an X in from here to the top and from up here down. So there'll be an X in here, but there's gonna be a harness bar across. And a lot of that's gonna depend on where the harness goes through the seat right here. So I want it to be a little bit below here. So right around here is where I want the bend. So right about the top of the speaker. Now, and then it's gonna drop straight down from there. Now you've got to be careful because a lot of sanctioning bodies will only allow 180 degrees on the roll bar. So, which means these two down tubes here have to be straight up and down. A lot of times on the cars, you want to bend them in a little bit. You want to bring it out as far as you can and then bend it in, but now you're over 180 degrees. So you want to look at where you're going to land it. You want to look at where the harness bar is. You want to look at all these angles, and you got to know the rules too to know what you can get away with. So that's all going to determine the degrees of the bends we're going to have to make in the tubing, what kind of plate we're going to have to do down here. Now, if I took this bend and I had this bend go all the way out, we cut this bar piece out here, so I can bring it all the way out almost to the body, and then I had to go straight down. I might have had to make some kind of outrigger actually out into the quarter panel there to support the structure. So this is all stuff you got to consider when you're building a roll bar. So I've mapped out most of the main hoop here, right behind the driver's seat. I believe they want about 20 degrees angle there. My shoulders are up a little bit higher than, about 20-degree angle here. My shoulders are up a little bit higher. I'll have to kind of double check that to make sure if that's right or not. But I have this triangle here in the middle. I can put a gusset there to help strengthen it. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to put something straight across the bottom. For a regular race car, I probably wouldn't, but for a rally car, that's probably an extra safety feature, extra precaution there. So next I'm going to do the next section, and that's the rear down tubes. So there's the rear down tubes. We've got another X right here in the middle. This is real important to do. There's plenty of space between this down tube and the fender well here. But it would be really bad if we had a plan and went to bent the bar and find out we had to cut into the fender well or notch it or do something, and then that interferes with a tire, and then we end up having to do all kinds of changes. So this is a good thing just to mask it out. Masking tape's a lot cheaper than having to redo it in tubing. And then I've got a piece of tube across here. I'm not sure if I like this. I may end up taking these and move it up here. The problem with doing that is you can see the rear strut mounts here. It mounts to the floor. So that's a strong section right here. I'm not sure if this is even really necessary. So this might just have to come out. But I can actually see it and kind of visualize it as to what's going on. And again, masking tape's a lot quicker, cheaper, and easier to change than bending tubing. Welding it in, cutting it out, making changes that way. Okay, when you're doing door bars, this is where things start to get complicated when you're doing door bars. It's really hard to do it with the door panel on and with the car still together. But this is kind of a rough idea of what I had, except this bar is probably going to come down, go straight, and then go back up. This one's going to either come up, go straight, and then go down. Or it may just I like running a bar right along the rocker panel. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe running a bar down along the rocker panel with some verticals in there. I'm not sure yet. But I can already see with the angles of all this stuff, more than likely I'm gonna have to notch this here to get the bar to tie into the main hoop, come through here, tie into the rocker assembly down here, the main structure of the car, which by doing that means this door panel is probably gonna have to get cut right under the armrest, which isn't bad. And then I may end up having to notch the door too, right around here. So the next thing is to see if I can even get in and out with those bars in place. And then you also want to look at how close this is to the steering wheel. There's a little bit of room there, but that's pretty close. That's closer than I'm comfortable with, but this will come out a little bit, but not a whole lot. So I was able to climb in here and not even disturb the tape. I can see this tape here. I can see this tape here is going to be out a little bit further, which gives us a little more room here. And then this is actually in quite a bit, so it should be almost a hand width right there, and I think it's going to go out a little bit more. There's going to be a bar across the top of the windshield. That's usually just a straight bar. I'm not sure yet what to do with the dash. I would prefer to take the dash completely out, put a bar tying the down tubes, left and right down tubes together. I can weld brackets on and tabs to bolt the dashboard onto. I'm not sure either about the steering column. I'm debating on whether I just build a custom lightweight racing steering column or try to build brackets and tabs to hold this one up. It tends to be cheaper just to use what you have rather than build something custom. But at the same time, there's a lot of brackets, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the geometry of the steering column that has to be, if it's not put back where it's supposed to be, it just does not work right. One thing I did see on one of our cars, we put some bolts into the shifter to raise it up so it's closer to the steering wheel. I'm going to try to do that. Okay, another thing I'm going to look at is where my shoulders are in relation to this hole in the seat. I can see my shoulders when I'm sitting here. My shoulders are about at the top of that hole. So I'll have to take an angle finder and figure out exactly what size that needs to be, or the height of the harness bar. I think it's pretty close to where it needs to be right now, but it's not exact. So I'm going to try closing this door and see where all the problems are. And this is still, these masking tape's still in a little bit further than it needs to be. So that's about as far as I can get it. Man, so here's a problem I'm seeing right now. Is this bar right here is almost right where the door handle is. So if I put this bar here, I have to cut this door panel. Am I even going to be able to open the door? The bar's about 1.5 inches. So do I need to move this forward? Or is there a way to move this back? It's all things we're gonna have to figure out when laying this out. But this is something, had I just started putting bars in, I would have known. That would have been a problem I wouldn't even have figured out yet. So one place where I'm lucky is this car. I do plan on driving it on the road daily. I have power windows and power locks in the center console, not on the door. So if I have to ditch this entire door panel and replaced it with a piece of aluminum, I still have my power locks and windows. However, depending on where the mechanisms are, these door bars may end up interfering with that as well. So I'm gonna have to pull this door panel off again before we get any more specific and find out whether interference is gonna be, or if there's even gonna be any, if it's gonna be a problem or not. So I hope this kind of gives you an idea of how to design a roll cage, the problems you're going to come across. Again, it's a lot easier to lay out in tape rather than try to bend up tubes and make it work. You can do that too. I've done it either way. But this, you can actually see some problems that you're going to have before you have them, and you can start with a plan on avoiding those, hopefully, or at least have an idea what you're going to come across and have an idea how you're going to deal with it when you get to that point. If you enjoy videos like this, seeing the next chapter in the Cupcake Delivery Express's life, and seeing the events coming up, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button to see more videos similar to this one.